Hey guys, welcome back. It's time for another Kellerman vlog. For those who don't know, I reread the murder mysteries by author Jonathan Kellerman, and we discuss them. Things I like, things I didn't like, things that bothered me, questions that I might have, things I'd want to ask the author or the publisher, and hopefully you'll discuss it with me in the comments down below. So, today's book is Victims. If you haven't read it, there will be spoilers. I'll give you a brief synopsis in case you haven't read it, but this vlog is really for people that have. But you're still welcome. So, our main characters are psychologist Alex Delaware and LAPD detective Milo Sturgis. And they're called to the scene of a very, very gruesome murder. I don't know what word I was trying to mix with. Brutal, and gruesome. Of an older woman who apparently was very cantankerous and pissed a lot of people off, so there are any number of suspects, but they don't have any direct leads, and there's a question mark left at the scene. And then while they're investigating her, a second murder turns up of a very, very nice gentleman who got along with everybody and no enemies, but there's a question mark left at the scene. And so there end up being maybe a half dozen murders with a question mark left at the scene, and the victims all seem to have nothing to do with each other, nothing in common. So that the book is essentially about trying to figure out what the common theme is and finding out who did it. Despite the fact that it kind of might sound from my very limited description to be kind of a trite or contrived plot, it's not. It's a very original. I haven't read a murder mystery like that before, and I think that was kind of my first reaction upon reading this. Was like, oh, this is new, not just for Kellerman, but overall. This is kind of a new plot for a murder mystery. And so I really like that about it. It's not very predictable at all. Some of Kellerman's books get very predictable, and that's okay. I mean, we like Kellerman for his characters and his scenery and his settings and his descriptions more so than the plots. The plots are kind of just there, and the plots are usually the biggest point of contention for people like me. But in this case, it's very interesting. And I like everything about it except for the ending. In a lot of Kellerman books, I take issue with the ending. I feel like he draws such a complicated picture that it's very hard to tie it all up. So here are my notes. There's a woman who's just an incidental character. She's not important, whose name is Sondra, and her husband calls her Sonny. And I know lots of Sonnys, but I've never heard Sonny as a nickname for Sondra. And if you have, put that in the comments, because that was new to me. The first woman that was murdered, her name is Vie-ta Berlin or Vie-ta Berlin. And I've always just, when you read stuff, you just say the word to yourself. I've always pronounced it as Vie-ta. And now when I make the notes, I'm wondering, is it actually Vie-ta? It's Vie-ta. Okay, speaking of names, there's another incidental character who has a nephew whose name is Dejon, and it's implied that this family is Jamaican. And Kellerman has used the name Dejon for Jamaicans before in his books, and I feel like that must be the only name that he thinks is Jamaican. It's not even like the most common Jamaican names, so I don't even know where. I mean, he must have known a Jamaican named Dejon and uses that. But it seems very much like it's kind of a stereotype. It's kind of good. I cringe when I read it. I said in my notes here, I think that this is what Kellerman thinks all male Jamaicans are named. Okay, there's a California State mental hospital referenced in this book, Ventura State, and a lot of California mental hospitals are referenced over the course of his books, which makes a lot of sense. In past books, I've tried to research and see if any of them are real or based on real hospitals, and I've always come up with nothing. And I'm wondering that again. I did not try to research it again this time just because I've never had any success with that before. But I am curious. Ventura State, is that based on a real place? Is it even a real place? In the book, I think it closed down years ago, maybe? I'm not sure. Yeah, it did. It closed down years ago because then it became like a retirement community. So at the end of the book, Alex and Milo are standing in a field on watching out for Grant Hugler. And how did they know exactly where to stand? Did they just coincidentally pick exactly the right spot? because they spotted the dogs very quickly. And I mean, maybe it said somewhere in the book that this is how they knew where to look, but I didn't catch it. If it said in the book, it went right over my head. I don't know. Yeah, so it seems like either they got really lucky or there was something I missed. So if you didn't miss that, put it in the comments. Shout out, speaking of mental hospitals that are referenced in these books, Starkweather Mental Hospital is referenced in this book, and it was a main character in, was that the Hope Devane book? No, that was the Claire Argent book, Monster. I always mix up Hope Devane and Claire Argent. So I always love it when authors reference back to something in a previous, like it's in universe, like, you know how our Marvel Cinematic Universe, everything's connected, and, you know, I love when authors do that because it makes you feel like the universe that the books are in is real. One of the things that really bothers me about the ending is the switch back and forth between past and present tense. I took some writing classes many eons ago, and they used to fail us for that. They used to say, like, you always pick a tense and stick to it. Either you stick to past tense or present tense. But at the end of the book, Kellerman, writing as Alex in the first person, goes back and forth between past and present tense. And I was always taught that that was a literary no-no, so I cringe when I see it. Kellerman does it a lot, actually, but this book is one of the more glaring examples of it. Okay, those are all the notes I had. I told you I didn't have very much. The next book in the series is Guilt. He really likes these one-word titles that make it harder for me to remember which is which. But I can only imagine that naming the book is probably I don't want to say the hardest part, because I'm sure it's challenging to write them, but it's probably the least rewarding part. Like, unless you just happen to have a really clever name, it's got to be like, oh, fine, well, you know, because then you got to please the publisher too, and it's got to be something catchy that'll stand out to people on the supermarket checkout shelves or wherever, Barnes and Noble. But yeah, so I get it, but yeah, I don't. The names don't really tell you that much about the books. Guilt's an interesting book, and we'll talk about that next video. Obviously, there's some things about it I really like. There's some things about it that are one of my favorite examples of these things in the series, but I don't like the book itself is not my favorite. It's just got some parts to it that I really like. So we'll talk about that next time. I'm reading that one now. So if you have any comments on this book, on Victims, leave them in the comments. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and as always, thanks for watching.